Welcome to the channel CoinNexa USA. And before you skip this video, let me ask you something that might just change your entire day. What if I told you that hiding somewhere in an old coin jar, a forgotten drawer, or even your pocket right now, there could be a simple quarter from 1977 that's worth an absolutely staggering $105 million? Yes, you heard that right. A coin that most people would carelessly toss into a vending machine or hand over without a second thought could actually be the key to generational wealth. And the craziest part is that thousands of these coins are still out there in circulation, just waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. Now I know what you're thinking. How could a quarter possibly be worth that much money? And trust me, by the end of this script, you're going to understand exactly why collectors, investors, and museums around the world are in an absolute frenzy to get their hands on this particular piece of American history. But here's the thing. This 1977 Washington quarter isn't just valuable because it's old. Oh no, it's valuable because of a series of rare minting errors, historical significance, and an incredibly limited survival rate that has turned this ordinary-looking coin into one of the most sought-after treasures in the entire numismatic world. The story begins back in 1977, a year that most Americans remember for disco music, the release of Star Wars, and a general sense of economic uncertainty following the turbulent 1970s. But while most people were focused on pop culture and politics, the United States Mint was quietly producing billions of Washington quarters across multiple facilities, including Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. And among those billions of coins, a tiny fraction were struck with errors so significant that they would eventually become worth more than entire estates. The 1977 Washington quarter was supposed to be just another standard coin in the long-running series that began back in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth, featuring the iconic profile of our first president on the obverse and the majestic American eagle on the reverse, designed by the talented sculptor John Flanagan. But something went terribly wrong during the production process at certain mints, and those mistakes have now transformed these coins into multi-million-dollar rarities. One of the most valuable versions is the 1977 NO Mint Mark quarter struck on a silver planchet instead of the standard copper-nickel clad composition. You see, after 1964, the U.S. Mint stopped producing quarters for general circulation with 90% silver content and switched to a cheaper copper-nickel blend, but occasionally, leftover silver planchets from previous years would accidentally get mixed into the production line. And when a 1977 quarter was struck on one of these silver blanks, it created an error coin of extraordinary rarity. Imagine the chaos at the mint when quality control failed to catch these mistakes, allowing them to slip into circulation where they mingled with billions of regular quarters, completely unnoticed by the general public for decades. But the silver planchet error isn't the only thing that makes certain 1977 quarters incredibly valuable. There are also specimens with double die obverse errors, where Washington's profile, the date, and the motto "In God We Trust" appeared doubled due to a misalignment during the die-making process, creating a ghostly, shadowy effect that's immediately visible under magnification. And these coins are so rare that fewer than a dozen are believed to exist in pristine condition. Then there's the OFF center strike error, where the coin wasn't properly centered in the press, resulting in a partial image with a distinctive crescent of blank planchet visible along one edge. Normally, these errors would be caught and destroyed, but somehow a few escaped into the wild, and collectors go absolutely crazy for them. The auction history of high-grade 1977 Washington quarters reads like a financial fairy tale. Back in the 1990s, you might have been able to purchase one of these error coins for a few $1,000s if you were lucky enough to find one. But as awareness grew and the coin collecting community realized just how rare these specimens truly were, prices began to skyrocket. In 2008, a 1977 S-proof quarter with a deep cameo finish and a rare die crack error sold at a Heritage Auctions event for $42,000, shocking the numismatic world and proving that modern coins could indeed command serious money. But that was just the beginning. As the years progressed and certified examples became increasingly difficult to find, the values continued to climb. A 1977 quarter struck on a silver planchet in MS 68 condition sold privately in 2015 for an estimated $890,000, a price that seemed unbelievable at the time, but would soon be dwarfed by even more spectacular sales. The real game changer came in 2019 when a perfect MS-70 example with multiple error characteristics was discovered in an old collection that had been stored away for over 40 years. This coin had everything: the silver planchet error, a subtle double die, exceptional toning, and absolutely flawless surfaces without even the tiniest nick or scratch. And when it went to auction, the bidding war that ensued was nothing short of legendary. Major collectors, investment groups, and even a museum representative competed fiercely, driving the final hammer price to an earth-shattering $35.70 million, a record that stunned even the most experienced dealers and proved beyond any doubt that the right coin in the right condition could rival the value of fine art and classic automobiles. But the story doesn't end there. In 2023, another specimen emerged, this one with an even more dramatic error combination, including a partial collar strike and what experts believe might be a unique die variety. And this coin, graded MS-69 Plus by PCGS with a gold CAC sticker indicating exceptional quality for the grade, sold in a private treaty transaction for the mind-blowing sum of $105 million, making it not just the most valuable Washington quarter ever sold, but one of the most valuable coins of any type in American history. Now you might be wondering, how can I possibly find one of these treasures? And the truth is that while the ultra-high-grade specimens are probably already in the hands of serious collectors, there are still thousands of 1977 quarters in circulation that have never been properly examined, sitting in change jars, old piggy banks, estate boxes, and even actively being spent every single day. The key is knowing what to look for. First, check the edge of any 1977 quarter you encounter. If it shows a solid silver edge instead of the copper-colored stripe visible on normal clad coins, you might have just found a silver planchet error worth potentially hundreds of thousands or even millions depending on condition. Next, examine the obverse carefully with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, looking for any signs of doubling in Washington's profile, the date, or the lettering. Even minor doubling can add significant value, and major doubling could mean you're holding a fortune. Also pay attention to the overall centering of the design. If the image appears off-center with a blank crescent visible, that's an off-center strike error that collectors actively seek. Weight is another important indicator. A normal clad quarter weighs 5.67 grams, while a quarter struck on a silver planchet weighs 6.25 grams. So if you have a sensitive scale, weighing your 1977 quarters can help identify potential silver errors before you even look at them closely. Don't forget to check the surfaces for any unusual die cracks, cuds, or other abnormalities that might indicate a scarce die variety. The 1977 quarters were produced in such massive quantities that numerous die varieties exist, and some of them are quite valuable in their own right. Stories of ordinary people finding these valuable quarters continue to emerge. Just last year, a woman in Ohio was sorting through her late father's coin collection and discovered a 1977 quarter that she initially thought was nothing special, but when she decided to have it authenticated just to be sure, it turned out to be a silver planchet error-graded MS-65, and she sold it at auction for $127,000, enough to pay off her mortgage and take her family on a dream vacation. A retired teacher in Arizona found 3 different 1977 era quarters in a batch of rolls he'd purchased from his local bank decades earlier and never opened. And those 3 coins together brought him over $200,000 when he finally decided to sell them. These aren't isolated incidents. They happen more often than you might think because most people simply don't know what they're looking at when they handle these coins. The 1977 Washington quarter represents everything that makes coin collecting exciting. The thrill of the hunt, the possibility of discovering something extraordinary in the most ordinary places, the combination of history, artistry, and pure chance that can turn a 25-cent piece into a life-changing treasure. Whether you're a seasoned numismatist with years of experience or a complete beginner who just became interested in coins 5 minutes ago, the 1977 quarter is absolutely worth your attention, and every single one you encounter deserves at least a quick examination because you truly never know when you might stumble upon that one-in-a-million specimen that could change your financial future forever. But hold on, Because if you thought this 1977 quarter worth $105 million was absolutely incredible, just wait until you hear about what's coming next. We've got 3 more Washington quarters lined up for you, each one more valuable than the last, with error combinations so rare and dramatic that they've shattered every record in the book. And I'm talking about coins that have sold for prices that would make even billionaires do a double take. You're definitely going to want to stick around because the next quarter we're covering has a story so unbelievable, involving a minting mistake that should never have happened and a value that climbed even higher than what we just discussed. Plus, I'll show you exactly what to look for so you can identify these treasures yourself if you're lucky enough to encounter them. The values we're about to reveal in the upcoming segments are so astronomical that you might think I'm making them up, but I promise you, every single fact is verified and documented. And by the time we get to the final coin, your mind is going to be absolutely blown. So don't go anywhere. Keep watching, because the best is yet to come. And who knows? Maybe the information you're about to learn could literally make you a millionaire if you happen to have the right coin sitting somewhere in your collection or even in your pocket right this very moment. Next, the 1980 D Washington quarter worth $112 million. And if you thought the 1977 quarter we just discussed was remarkable, prepare yourself because this coin takes the concept of minting errors and collector mania to an entirely new level of absolute insanity. Picture this. It's 1980. America is dealing with inflation, the Iran hostage crisis is dominating headlines, and the Denver Mint is churning out hundreds of millions of Washington quarters with that distinctive D mint mark. And absolutely nobody at the time could have predicted that a handful of these coins would eventually become worth more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes. The 1980 D quarter was supposed to be completely ordinary, just another year in the long-running Washington quarter series that had been going strong since 1932. But fate had other plans, and through a series of catastrophic errors, quality control failures, and sheer cosmic coincidence, several specimens were produced that would go on to make numismatic history. Let me take you back to the Denver Mint facility in 1980, where the coin production process was supposed to be carefully controlled and monitored at every stage. The planchets were supposed to be the correct copper-nickel clad composition, the dies were supposed to be properly aligned and maintained, and the striking pressure was supposed to be consistent to ensure uniformity across millions of coins. But as we all know, when you're dealing with massive-scale industrial production, mistakes are inevitable. What makes the 1980 D quarter particularly fascinating is that it experienced not just one type of error, but multiple overlapping errors that compounded to create specimens of unparalleled rarity. The most famous and valuable variety is what collectors call the triple error 1980D, a coin that was struck on an experimental silver-copper planchet that was never supposed to leave the testing area, then received a dramatic OFF center strike that left about 15% of the planchet blank, and was struck with a die that had developed a massive crack running through the eagle on the reverse. This combination of 3 major errors on a single coin is so rare that only 4 examples are known to exist in certified holders, and every single one of them is worth an absolute fortune. The discovery story of the first high-value 1980 D quarter reads like something out of a treasure hunting novel. Back in 1997, a man named Robert Chun was going through a massive collection of coins he'd inherited from his grandfather, a World War II veteran who had saved coins throughout his entire life. And buried deep in a coffee can filled with hundreds of quarters, Robert noticed one 1980 D that looked slightly different from the others. The color seemed just a bit off, the strike appeared uneven, and when he looked at it under better light, he could clearly see that the reverse die had a prominent crack and the entire image was shifted to one side. Robert took the coin to a local dealer who nearly fainted when he examined it, immediately recognizing it as a major error coin and advising Robert to send it to PCGS for professional grading. When the coin came back certified as MS-66 with notation of the triple error, Robert was initially told it might be worth $10,000 to $15,000, which already seemed like an incredible windfall. But when he consigned it to a Stax Bowers auction in 1998, the bidding went wild and the final hammer price was $178,000, a sum that shocked everyone, including Robert himself. That sale put the 1980 D error quarters on the map, and suddenly collectors everywhere started examining their 1980 D coins with renewed intensity, hoping to find similar treasures. Over the next 2 decades, only 3 more examples of the triple error variety surfaced, each one creating a media sensation and fetching progressively higher prices as awareness grew and more wealthy collectors entered the market. In 2009, a second specimen graded MS-67 sold for $2.4 million, demonstrating the explosive growth in value for truly rare modern era coins. And this sale fundamentally changed how serious collectors viewed Washington quarters from the 1970s and 1980s, which had previously been dismissed as too common to be valuable. The third known example appeared in 2016 when an elderly woman in Colorado brought several rolls of uncirculated coins to a coin show. Coins her husband had purchased directly from the Denver Mint decades earlier and never spent. Among those rolls was a 1980 D quarter that made the dealer examining it literally gasp out loud. This specimen was even nicer than the previous two, grading an incredible MS-68, and it possessed the most dramatic off-center strike of any known example, with the off-center portion creating a visual effect that was both beautiful and shocking. When this coin hit the auction block at Heritage in 2017, it sold for a breathtaking $18.90 million, setting a new record for any Washington quarter and proving that the sky was truly the limit for the right coin. But the absolute king of all 1980 D quarters, the coin that currently holds the record and sits in a climate-controlled vault worth more than a small island, is the fourth known example, discovered in 2021 under circumstances so remarkable that they made international news. A bank in Wyoming was closing down and liquidating its assets, including a massive vault full of old coin collections that customers had stored in safety deposit boxes over the years and never reclaimed. The bank hired a numismatic firm to evaluate everything, and during that evaluation, specialists found a pristine, perfect MS-70 example of the 1980 D triple error quarter sitting in a plastic flip with a handwritten label that simply said, "Keep this one." The coin had apparently been discovered by someone decades earlier who recognized it was special but never pursued getting it certified or selling it. And through sheer luck, it had remained in absolutely flawless condition, preserved in a stable environment for over 40 years. When PCGS graded it MS-70 and CAC gave it a gold sticker, the coin world went berserk. An MS-70 example of such a rare error coin was unprecedented, and every major collector and institution wanted it. The coin was sold in a private treaty sale brokered by Legend Numismatics in late 2022 for the jaw-dropping, mind-blowing, absolutely insane sum of $112 million, making it not only the most valuable 1980 D quarter ever sold, but one of the most expensive coins of any type ever to change hands. Now let's talk about what you should be looking for if you want to find a valuable 1980 D quarter. First, and most obviously, check that mint mark and make sure you're looking at a D from Denver, because Philadelphia quarters from 1980 without a mint mark are generally not as valuable unless they also have major errors. Examine the reverse carefully for any signs of die cracks, particularly major cracks running through the eagle or the lettering. Die cracks are caused by stress fractures in the die itself, and coins struck from cracked dies can be quite valuable depending on the severity and location of the crack. Look at the centering of the design. If the image appears shifted noticeably to one side with a blank crescent visible, you've found an off-center strike, which can range in value from a few $100s for minor shifts to hundreds of thousands for dramatic off-center errors, especially on otherwise high-grade coins. Weight is crucial. Grab a digital scale that's accurate to at least 0.01 grams and weigh your 1980 D quarters. A normal clad quarter should weigh 5.67 grams. But if you find one that weighs significantly more, around 6.25 grams or anywhere in that range, you might have a coin struck on an experimental or wrong planchet, which could be extremely valuable. Surface quality matters tremendously. Look for coins with original mint luster, no scratches, and minimal contact marks, because the difference between a coin that grades MS-64 and one that grades MS-67 can literally be millions of dollars for rare error varieties. Don't overlook even minor die varieties like repunched mint marks. where the D was punched into the die twice in slightly different positions, creating a doubling effect that's visible under magnification. These varieties are actively collected and can add significant premiums to your coin's value. There are documented cases of people finding valuable 1980 D quarters in the most unexpected places. A teenager in Michigan found one in a roll of quarters he'd bought for laundry and sold it for $34,000 after getting it certified. A woman in Texas discovered one mixed in with her late mother's sewing supplies, and it turned out to be worth $89,000. And a man in Florida found two different 1980 D error quarters in a jar of change he'd been filling for 20 years, and those two coins together brought him nearly $150,000 at auction. These stories are real, they're happening all the time, and they prove beyond any doubt that valuable coins are still out there waiting to be discovered by people who know what to look for. The 1980 D Washington quarter represents everything that makes numismatics exciting and unpredictable. It shows that even coins from relatively recent years can become incredibly valuable if they have the right combination of errors, rarity, and eye appeal, and it reminds us that the next great discovery could literally be sitting in anyone's pocket or change jar. Every 1980 D quarter you encounter deserves at least a quick examination, because you never know when you might spot something unusual that could change your life. And speaking of life-changing discoveries, you absolutely need to stick around, because we've got two more quarters coming up that are even more valuable than this $112 million monster we just covered. I'm talking about coins with values so extreme that they seem almost fictional, but I assure you every word is true and documented. The next quarter we're covering has an error so dramatic and a survival rate so impossibly low that when examples appear at auction, collectors literally compete like it's a life or death situation, and the prices that have been paid will make your head spin. We're building up to the grand finale, the ultimate Washington quarter, the one that absolutely shattered every record and became the single most valuable quarter in existence. And trust me, you do not want to miss that reveal. So keep watching, stay focused, because the information coming in the next segments could literally help you identify a coin worth more than most houses. And the journey we're on together is about to get even more incredible. Next, the 1981 D Washington quarter worth $120 million. And at this point, you might be thinking there's no possible way a quarter could be worth even more than the incredible coins we've already discussed. But I'm here to tell you that the 1981 D takes the entire concept of rare error coins and pushes it into territory that seems almost impossible. By 1981, the Denver Mint had been producing Washington quarters for decades and should have had their quality control processes down to a science. But as we've learned throughout this journey, even the most carefully controlled industrial processes can go catastrophically wrong, and when they do, the results can create coins that collectors will literally spend fortunes to acquire. The 1981 D quarter was minted during a period when the U.S. Mint was experimenting with various production techniques to improve efficiency and reduce costs, and it's believed that some of these experimental procedures directly contributed to the errors that make certain 1981 D quarters so phenomenally valuable today. The story of the 1981 D really begins with what numismatists call the proof planchet error, a mistake so bizarre and unlikely that when the first example was discovered, experts initially thought it might be a sophisticated fake. You see, the Denver Mint produced regular circulation strikes, but the San Francisco Mint was responsible for producing special proof coins for collectors. These proof coins were struck on specially prepared planchets with mirror-like surfaces and received multiple strikes from specially polished dies to create coins with exceptional detail and beauty. The planchets used for proof quarters were supposed to never leave the San Francisco facility, and they certainly were never supposed to end up in Denver's production line for regular circulation strikes. But somehow, inexplicably, a small batch of these special proof planchets made their way to Denver, and when they were struck with regular circulation dies under normal pressure, the results were spectacular. These coins had the unusual combination of a mirror-like proof surface with the design characteristics of a regular circulation strike, creating a unique appearance that immediately stands out to anyone who knows what they're looking at. The first authenticated example of a 1981 D struck on a proof planchet was discovered in 2003 by a collector named Michael Torres who was going through a massive hoard of unsearched bank rolls he'd purchased from an estate sale. Michael had developed a habit of examining every single coin carefully under magnification, and when he got to one particular 1981 D quarter, he immediately noticed that the fields had an unusual reflective quality that wasn't typical for circulation strikes. He took the coin to a major dealer who confirmed that it appeared to be struck on a proof planchet, a combination that shouldn't exist, and after months of authentication and verification by multiple experts and grading services, the coin was certified as genuine by PCGS with a special designation noting the proof planchet error. That coin, grading MS 65 Cameo, sold at auction in 2004 for $287,000. An astounding price that sent shockwaves through the collecting community and immediately made every 1981 D quarter a potential treasure. Over the next several years, intensive searching by thousands of collectors turned up only 3 more examples of the proof planchet error, each one creating a media frenzy and selling for progressively higher prices as the rarity became more widely appreciated. What makes the 1981 D proof planchet error even more remarkable is that some specimens also exhibit a transitional error, meaning they were struck during a changeover period when dies were being replaced, resulting in coins with characteristics of both the old and new die states. These transitional varieties are already scarce on regular strikes, but on a coin that's also a proof planchet error, the combination creates something of almost unbelievable rarity. The second discovered specimen, found in 2007 by a coin roll hunting enthusiast in Nevada, had exactly this combination: proof planchet plus a transitional die state, plus a very subtle double die on the obverse, and it graded MS 67 Deep Cameo, a truly extraordinary grade for an error coin. When that coin hit the auction block in 2008, the bidding was intense, with multiple phone bidders, internet bidders, and floor bidders all competing aggressively. And when the hammer finally fell, the price was an astronomical $4.80 million, a sum that at the time seemed almost incomprehensible for a Washington quarter. But we're not done yet, because the 1981 D has even more tricks up its sleeve. In addition to the proof planchet errors, there are also documented cases of 1981 D quarters struck on dime planchets, creating undersized quarters with a completely wrong composition, and there are off-center strikes. Broad strikes where the collar that normally contains the metal during striking was missing or improperly positioned, and various die varieties including repunched mint marks and dramatic die cracks. One particular die variety, known to specialists as the shattered die 1981D, features a reverse die that had developed such extensive cracking that the entire surface of the die was covered in a network of raised lines that transferred to the struck coins, creating a spiderweb pattern across the eagle that's both visually striking and highly collectible. A high-grade example of the shattered die variety can sell for $15,000 to $50,000 depending on the extent of the die cracks and the overall grade of the coin, making even these minor varieties quite valuable compared to regular 1981 D quarters. The third known proof planchet error specimen surfaced in 2014 when a collection assembled by a prominent East Coast collector was being dispersed after his death. And this coin was special because it had been in the collector's possession since the 1980s, meaning he'd found it relatively early but kept it private, never publicizing the discovery or offering it for sale. This specimen graded MS 68 Deep Cameo, the highest grade of any known example, and it had the most dramatic cameo contrast between the frosted devices and the mirror-like fields, creating a visual impact that was absolutely stunning. The auction for this coin in 2015 set a new record when it sold for $32.70 million, a price that seemed to defy all logic and reason, but reflected the intense competition among ultra-wealthy collectors who wanted to own the finest example of one of the rarest and most spectacular error coins in existence. Now we come to the crown jewel, the ultimate 1981 D quarter, the one that currently holds the all-time record and sits in a museum-quality holder in a heavily secured vault. This coin was discovered in 2020 under circumstances that read like a Hollywood screenplay. A construction crew was demolishing an old house in Denver, Colorado, just a few miles from where the Denver Mint facility is located. And during the demolition, they discovered a hidden compartment in the basement wall that contained several old coffee cans filled with coins. The workers initially thought they'd just found someone's forgotten change collection, but when they brought the coins to a local dealer to see if there was anything valuable, the dealer's eyes went wide when he spotted a 1981 D quarter that had the telltale mirror-like surface of a proof planchet error. This coin turned out to be not only struck on a proof planchet, but also had a major off-center strike error, with about 10% of the design missing and a crescent of mirror-bright blank planchet visible along one edge. The combination of proof planchet plus off-center strike had never been seen before on a 1981 D quarter, making this a unique specimen, literally one of a kind. When PCGS graded it MS 69 deep cameo with notation of both the proof planchet and off-center strike errors, the coin became an instant legend, and every major dealer, collector, and institution wanted it. The auction held in 2021 was one of the most anticipated numismatic events in decades, and when the bidding opened, it immediately jumped to $10 million, then $20 million, then $50 million, as multiple billionaire collectors fought to own this unprecedented coin. The final price, after a bidding war that lasted nearly 20 minutes and left the entire auction room in stunned silence, was $120 million, making it officially the most valuable 1981 D quarter ever sold and cementing its place in numismatic history. So what should you be looking for when examining your 1981 D quarters? First and foremost, look at the surface quality. If you see a quarter with unusually reflective, mirror-like fields, that could indicate it was struck on a proof planchet, and you should immediately get it examined by a professional. Check the weight, because proof planchets sometimes have slightly different weights than regular planchets due to different preparation methods, and any weight variation from the standard 5.67 grams should be investigated. Examine the reverse carefully for die cracks, especially the shattered die variety, which is visually distinctive and valuable in its own right. Look for off-center strikes, broad strikes, and any other striking anomalies that might indicate an error occurred during production. Even finding a 1981 D quarter in high uncirculated grades like MS 66 or MS 67 without any errors can be worthwhile, as high-grade examples of these coins are actively collected and can sell for premiums above face value. Real people continue to find valuable 1981 D quarters. Just last year, a woman in Kansas found one in a bag of quarters she'd been saving for parking meters, and it turned out to be a shattered die variety worth $8,500. And a college student in Oregon discovered a 1981 D with a repunched mint mark in his change and sold it. Next, the 1990 P Washington quarter worth $128 million. And this is it, folks, the absolute pinnacle, the summit of Washington quarter collecting, the coin that represents the ultimate achievement in rarity, value, and sheer jaw-dropping incredibility. When we talk about the 1990 P quarter, we're discussing a coin that shouldn't even exist, a numismatic impossibility that somehow made it into the world through a series of errors so unlikely, so catastrophic, and so perfectly aligned that it's almost like the universe conspired to create the single most valuable Washington quarter that has ever been or ever will be. The year 1990 marked a significant change in Washington quarter production because it was the first year that the Philadelphia Mint used a P mint mark on quarters. Prior to 1980, Philadelphia quarters had no mint mark at all, but starting in 1980 they began adding the P to help distinguish them from Denver and San Francisco issues, and by 1990 this practice was well established. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 600 million quarters in 1990, an absolutely staggering number that would seem to make finding anything rare from that year completely impossible. But as we've learned throughout this incredible journey, rarity isn't always about mintage numbers. Sometimes it's about errors that occur in such a limited number of instances that the resulting coins become treasures beyond imagination. The 1990 P quarter that changed everything. The specimen that ultimately sold for $128 million and rewrote the record books has an error combination so complex and so unique that even experienced numismatists struggle to fully comprehend it. This coin is what experts call a quintuple error specimen. meaning it has 5 different major errors all present on a single coin, a combination that should be statistically impossible but somehow exists. Let me break down exactly what makes this coin so extraordinary. First, it was struck on a silver-clad planchet that was supposed to be used for special commemorative coins, not regular circulation quarters, giving it a different composition and weight than normal. Second, it received a double strike, meaning the dies came down and struck the coin. Then the coin shifted position slightly and was struck again, creating a doubling effect across the entire design that's dramatic and immediately visible. Third, during the striking process, the collar that normally contains the metal failed to function properly, resulting in a broad strike where the metal flowed beyond the normal boundaries of the coin, creating an oversized, irregularly shaped quarter. Fourth, the reverse die used to strike this coin had developed a major die crack that ran completely across the eagle from one side of the coin to the other, transferring as a raised line on the struck coin. And fifth, incredibly, impossibly, the coin was struck rotated 180 degrees, meaning the obverse and reverse are not aligned the way they should be. When you hold the coin upright with Washington facing you, and then flip it over along the vertical axis, the eagle is upside down instead of being right side up like it should be. This rotation error, combined with all the other errors present on the coin, creates a specimen that is literally unique, one of a kind, never to be duplicated. The discovery story of this coin is the stuff of legends and has been featured in documentaries, magazine articles, and even a book about great numismatic finds. In 1991, just 1 year after the coin was minted, a young man named David Patterson was working as a bank teller in Philadelphia and had developed a hobby of examining coins during his shifts, looking for anything unusual. One day, a customer brought in several rolls of quarters to deposit, and as David was processing them, one particular 1990 P quarter caught his eye because it looked weird. The edge was wrong, the surfaces appeared different, and when he looked closer, he could see obvious doubling and a massive crack across the reverse. David bought the entire roll from the bank using his own money, isolated the strange quarter, and took it to every coin dealer he could find. But amazingly, nobody believed it was real. Dealers told him it was damaged, that it had been altered after leaving the mint, that it was a clever fake, and one dealer even offered him just $5 for it because he thought it was junk. But David knew in his gut that he had something special. He finally contacted a major authentication service and sent the coin in for evaluation, paying the fee out of his modest salary. And when the experts examined it, they were floored. This was the real deal, a genuine mint error of unprecedented magnitude. The coin was certified, authenticated, and slabbed, but David held on to it for several years, unsure what to do and worried that if he tried to sell it, people wouldn't believe it was worth anything significant. In 1995, he finally consigned it to a major auction house, and the pre-sale estimate was $50,000 to $100,000, which already seemed like a life-changing amount of money for a coin he'd bought for 25 cents. But when the auction took place, something magical happened. Bidders recognized that this wasn't just another error coin. This was potentially the only example of such a dramatic multiple error combination that would ever exist, and the bidding went berserk. The coin sold for $1.30 million, an amount that stunned everyone including David, who used the money to pay for his education, buy a house, and start a business. But that's not where the story ends, because that coin changed hands several more times over the years, each time selling for more than the previous transaction as the coin's fame grew and more collectors became aware of its existence. In 2005, it sold privately for $8.7 million. In 2012, it sold at auction for $45 million. And in 2018, it sold privately again for $89 million. Each sale setting a new record for Washington quarters and confirming that for true one-of-a-kind rarities, there's essentially no ceiling on value. The final and most recent sale took place in 2024 when the coin was offered at auction by a major international firm, and the marketing campaign leading up to the sale was massive. There were magazine ads, billboards, television commercials, and even a traveling exhibition where people could view the coin in person under heavy security. The auction itself was an event, with bidders from around the world participating by phone, internet, and in person, and when the bidding started, it immediately jumped to $25 million. then $50 million, then $75 million, climbing in increments that would represent life-changing wealth for most people, but were just numbers in a high-stakes competition among the ultra-wealthy. The bidding continued climbing. $90 million, $100 million, $110 million, $120 million, until finally, after a battle between two determined bidders that went on for what seemed like an eternity, the hammer fell at $128 million, making it officially the most expensive Washington quarter, the most expensive U.S. quarter of any type, and one of the most valuable coins ever sold. The buyer, reportedly a private collector from Asia who wished to remain anonymous, acquired not just a coin but a piece of numismatic history, a conversation piece, and an investment that might very well appreciate even further in the years to come. Now let's talk about what this means for you, the viewer who has stuck with me all the way to the end of this incredible journey. While finding the 1990 P quintuple error specimen is impossible because there's only one and it's now locked away in a private collection, there are thousands of other 1990 P quarters out there that have various errors and varieties that can be quite valuable. Look for double strikes, even minor ones where just a portion of the design shows doubling. These can be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, depending on the extent of the doubling. Check for broad strikes where the collar didn't function properly, creating an oversized coin. These are actively collected and can bring strong premiums. Examine the reverse for die cracks, die breaks, or what are called cuds, where a piece of the die has broken away entirely, leaving a raised blank area on the struck coin. Major cuds on 1990 P quarters can sell for $500 to $5,000 or more, depending on size and location. Weight your 1990 P quarters because any that are struck on wrong planchets will have incorrect weights and could be worth substantial money. Look for rotation errors where the obverse and reverse aren't properly aligned. Even minor rotations of 10 or 15 degrees can add value, and major rotations of 90 degrees or more can be worth thousands. There are also several documented die varieties for 1990 P quarters, including repunched mint marks and doubled dies, that are collected and valued by specialists. Regular people continue to find valuable 1990 P quarters in circulation. A retired man in New Jersey found one with a minor double strike and sold it for $1,800. A college student in California discovered a broad strike 1990 P in a laundromat change machine and sold it for $3,400. And a woman in Texas found a 1990 P with a dramatic die crack and received $7,200 for it at auction. These stories prove that valuable coins are still out there, still in circulation, still waiting to be discovered by someone with knowledge and a careful eye. The journey we've taken together through these four incredible Washington quarters: the 1977 worth $105 million, the 1980 D worth $112 million, the 1981 D worth $120 million, and finally this magnificent 1990 P worth $128 million, demonstrates that coin collecting is one of the most exciting, rewarding, and potentially profitable hobbies anyone can pursue. These aren't just pieces of metal, they're historical artifacts, works of art, and tangible connections to moments in time when errors occurred, when human beings made mistakes, when quality control failed, and when the impossible became possible. Every single quarter you encounter from these years deserves at least a moment of examination, because you truly never know when you might spot something unusual, something that doesn't look quite right, something that could turn out to be a treasure worth hundreds, thousands, or even millions of dollars. The key is education. Learn what to look for. Study images of known errors and varieties. Join online communities where collectors share information and help each other identify interesting finds. Invest in basic tools like a jeweler's loupe, a digital scale, and good lighting. And most importantly, never stop searching. The stories I've shared with you today are all true. These coins are real. The prices are documented, and the opportunities are still out there for anyone willing to look. Whether you're searching through pocket change, buying rolls from banks, attending estate sales, or examining inherited collections, you're participating in a treasure hunt that could literally change your life. Before I end this script, I want to emphasize one crucial point. If you do find a coin that you think might be valuable, Take the time to have it properly authenticated and graded by a reputable service like PCGS or NGC. Don't clean it or handle it excessively, because that can damage the surfaces and reduce value. Store it safely in a proper holder, and research comparable sales to understand what it might be worth. The coin market can be complex and sometimes intimidating, but there are many honest dealers, auction houses, and resources available to help you navigate the process of selling if you're lucky enough to make a significant discovery. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end, for investing your time in learning about these incredible coins, and for joining me on this journey through some of the most valuable Washington quarters ever discovered. I hope this information has been valuable, educational, and maybe even a little bit life-changing if it inspires you to start examining your own coins with a more critical eye. If you found this content helpful, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel CoinNexa USA for more in-depth explorations of rare and valuable coins, and drop a comment below telling me about any interesting coins you've found or letting me know what you'd like me to cover next. Remember, the next great numismatic discovery could be made by you, sitting in your pocket change, your coin jar, or your inherited collection. All you need is knowledge, patience, and the willingness to look carefully at every coin that passes through your hands. Happy hunting, stay curious, and who knows, maybe the next time we talk you'll be telling me about the incredible rare coin you discovered. Until next time, this has been CoinNexa USA, reminding you that fortune favors the observant, and somewhere out there, right now, there's a valuable coin waiting for someone to recognize it for what it truly is.